So it's quite exciting. Let's say 2 months ago, we never even thought of a VIP lounge. That actually came out of a trip on Dave's birthday, and we were taken into the VIP place in Vegas by some of our friends. And I was like, oh my word, this is so nice. It was really, really nice. And, just all of the you just get kind of spoiled, right? They're just giving you whatever. And I'm like, this is pretty nice. And then I thought, who's the greatest in the kingdom? The servant of all. So what if we created a volunteer integration project where we had a lounge where the servants were actually the greatest of all, where we honored them in the world? This is an upside down kingdom. So in the world, if you have money, you're the greatest. If you whatever, you're the greatest. In the kingdom, he says the servant is the greatest. We want this to become a church that is completely servant-oriented, from the senior pastors all the way down to the people that just barely walk on the campus. So yesterday what happened is we were having a fabulous teaching time over there about finding your niche, figuring out how to get in the right place that God created for you. And there were brand new people, some that I'd never met, some that I've met before, but barely, and some I know a little bit. So one of the precious girls, I think she's here this morning, but I won't call her out, actually walked in, and I'd never really connected with her. And she walked up and she said, is there anything I can do to help? And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a GT girl right there. She has our heartbeat, right? She's like, is there any way I can help at all? And I said, yeah, why don't you go in the kitchen and help Jill cut the fruit and stuff, and you can bring it out here. And then somebody else jumps in and says, can I help? Can I help? Can I help? And I'm like, ooh, this is becoming a theme. How wonderful is this? And guess what was happening in the kitchen? Adam Higgins was laying the kick plate, what do you call it? The trim on the floorboard, baseboard. He's laying the baseboard. The kitchen's not even finished yet. And so we have 2 carpenters and Adam Higgins, who is a bricklayer, and he's in there and he's finishing up. Everybody's working, and we have all these brand new volunteers, and they're flooding in there, and it made me laugh. I'm sure the carpenters didn't think it was as funny as I did, but I thought it was fabulous. I'm like, this is what God wants. He wants all of us fully functioning. And so that's where God's trying to take this body. We are going to each joint completely supply, and each of you have different giftings, and that's really what this VIP center is all about. How many of you are on the deliverance team and love to do deliverance over people? Jess, that was a half hand. I would expect Jess to have both hands and both legs in the air, but he loves to do deliverance over people. How many years have you done that? 30? Close to 30 years, yeah. Anyway, that is something he's well known for. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you. That's something that he's well known for everywhere, and none of us knew anything about it 31 years ago, or however long ago we started. None of us. We didn't have a clue. Grandpa did it. And I felt it coming, but we weren't ready to dive in, right? And God brought it anyway. Well, God's bringing us on a journey, and it's an exciting journey. It's an amazing journey. He's up to something beyond what we understand. And the brand new gal yesterday, or girls that were jumping in and saying, can I help? Can I help? It touched my heart. I was like, God, that's so beautiful. 2 weeks ago, I had a girl come. She was sitting right over here, and she's really just a delightful person. Have you ever met somebody you just look at and think, there's so much joy and peace and delight in her? She's just that way, and she's always that way. And she comes to my Tuesday morning group, but we've never sat down and had lunch, or never really connected like that. But she always, if she's going to say anything, it always really makes sense, right? And she, like after class, she'd come up and say, what about this? Do you think that? And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how we think around here. So she's been around 1.5 years, and she comes up to me after the service, and she said, I had a dream. And in the dream, you and Dave were in it, and I feel like I need to tell you about the dream. I'm like, I would love to hear. And we have a lot of people tell a lot of interesting dreams. God, I don't know. The spirit world is busy at night and lots of interesting dreams. She said, I had a dream, and I've only had 3 or 4 in my lifetime like this. But this dream, God woke me up, and he said, I can't remember if it was this dream that he said, are you listening to me? But one of those 4 dreams, he said, are you listening to me? Listen. And he said her name. And he said, listen. Her name's Florentina. He said, listen, I want to talk to you. And he, in this dream, he said, I need you to stand with Cheryl and Dave. I need you to do whatever they ask you to do. Would you go and volunteer? Well, it was so funny. And I'm like, of course we need volunteers, of course. She said, no, this is me personally volunteering for you. I will do anything you need. And I'm like, Lori will be so happy. Lori's like, yes, yay, Jesus. Part of my password, not all of it, is Jesus help Cheryl. And it works. I put that in there all the time. And every time I put my password in, he's starting to say, yeah, Cheryl needs help, right? So he's sending dreams to people. It's pretty funny. But anyway, it's amazing to watch what God is doing. And she came in and just a delight to the whole team. We have a phenomenal staff. The secretaries are phenomenal. And she's just a delight. She comes in as cheerily, just helping. And she would follow me along while I'm trying to pull together things, because I'm not the most administrative person that I've ever met, to say the least. And God sends me helpers. And he's like, you know what? Here, let me help you. So that was such a delight to my heart. I was like, God, you're unbelievable. This beautiful, precious executive secretary from a banking corporation is saying, I'll do anything you need. And we had just, as a secretarial pool, said we need to create a volunteer team that is for conferences, because Dave is like, we're going to have more conferences, we're going to do more events, we're going to have more going on here. This place is becoming a hub for what God is doing. And as we are an embassy, people are going to be looking to us, and we have to have the answers. So that means we need to have a team of brilliant people doing everything. Well, our secretarial pool is amazing. They're really assistants, really assist in everything, but they're amazing. But you just can't run, like Alicia told me, we can't do 72 hours a week. And I'm like, you're right. That's not a good plan. We've got to figure out how to make it work. And God stepped in, and he's like, here's how to make it work. Let's do this. And then Carrie, first time I think she's come to my Tuesday mornings, and I'm like, we're going to create a voluntary team that's going to help run all the conferences. And she is a brainiac in stuff like that. She runs a company, basically. Very, very smart girl. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, God, you've almost got our backs on everything here, because it's his plan, not ours. He's planning this. And so then I have this girl that is, I'm just sharing with you my heart, but it's with purpose and intentionality. This new girl that comes to the church, and she said, I went to the same church for 20 years, and it's a great church, a lot of prophecy, a lot of good stuff, but they didn't really do a lot of deliverance, right? But they knew it was real, just didn't do it. And she said, of course, when a church is active, what happens? Warfare is active. If you don't understand that warfare is coming against you, you're going to get your rear kicked all over town if you don't understand that you have to stand against the enemy. What people forget about standing against the enemy is they forget to submit yourself to God and then resist the enemy. I have people all the time say, I told it to leave. And I'm like, are you submitted to God? Let's back up. Have you submitted yourself fully to God? Because that's where this begins. It doesn't begin with, I'm going to resist the enemy. It begins with full submission to God. And then he backs you up as you say, enemy, you get the hell out of here, right? So our church understands that piece fairly well. I hope we don't get more graduate school, but we might. So we actually have been around that block a time or two. We understand a lot of that. Well, hopefully we do get more graduate school. We want to know everything there is to know about all of that. So whatever it looks like, God, bring it on, anything that we need to graduate fully into the fullness that you intend. So anyway, this girl said, I went to this church, but she said, I got 6 prophecies in one day. And the 6 prophecies in the one day were God's shifting you from one church to another. And she thought, what is going on? And of course, she'd seen our Isaiah 61, been here once, and thought, I wonder if it's there. She went to another church that had her do some speaking, some sharing, and she's actually a beautiful gal with a lot on the ball. And she went to this other church, and somebody comes up to her and prophesies over her and said, you're going to go on a trip to South Africa. So she thought, okay, interesting. And the next week, she felt like God said, you need to go to Glad Tidings. So she came here. We did the video that said Glad Tidings we're combining with Daniel and having a group go over there with him to South Africa. And she's like, well, clearly that's my trip. So she signs up, and they start trying to figure out who she is. Well, she put down there from Glad Tidings. Well, she's new from Glad Tidings. And so when he asked me, I didn't know. And I ended up calling her. Linda McKaylee followed up on her and got all of her information, found out what a champion superhero she is. And she says, I'm a pretty quiet background person, but she's got a lot on the ball. She's precious. And then she called Linda, and her talking said, I really want to tell a dream to Dave and Cheryl. And so Linda gave her my phone number. We connect, and then she tells this dream. And this is what I started to tell at the very beginning. She told a dream that she had, and she said, I don't know you guys well, obviously, because I'm brand new. But I had a dream about you and Dave, and you were in a old Woodie truck. I don't know really what that looks like. I should have looked it up. But how many of you know what an old Woodie panel truck looks like? And did they have ivory color? Because in the dream, there was an ivory color old Woodie panel truck. And she said, I don't think they had seatbelts back then, but I don't think they had front and back cab back then, obviously not. But in the dream, both of those things were there. There was a back seat, and there was also a seatbelt. So she said, I'm looking, and this vehicle is beautiful, and it's out in this meadow, and it's got flowers everywhere, and it's got a slope. It's going kind of a downhill meadow, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And she said, I look at the car, the truck, and Jesus has the steering wheel. And she thought, how fun is that? And she said, I look over, and Dave is in the passenger seat, and he's all buckled up, and he's looking out the windows, and he's looking everywhere, and he's taking in everything that's happening. Well, right now, that is what he's doing. He's figuring out everything that's happening all over, and he's taking it all in. And she said he was really happy, and he's doing really good, and he was totally safe. He had a seatbelt on. He's totally safe. You don't have to worry about him at all. He's going to be fine. Well, I know that because God has this whole thing. God sovereignly saved Dave's life without us ever going to a doctor before that, ever. And one day he's like, no, today, and it saved his life. It's amazing. God is awesome. And Dave is totally fine. I don't think at all about the chance of losing him. I'm like, nope, our job is to walk like Enoch walked. We are to walk out resurrection life. That's our jobs. And we cannot let that down. We've got to walk in health and the Spirit. It's quite exciting. So anyway, she said the path, she said the meadow was so beautiful and flowers everywhere in this beautiful old vehicle, Jesus with the wheel, Dave looking out, hands in the air, just going, oh, this is awesome. And she said Jesus was going very fast. He had his foot on the gas all the way down, and he's going really fast. And there are bumps, and it's hitting bumps everywhere. And she said, you're not even seatbelted in. You're in the back seat right behind Jesus, and you have your head over the steering wheel, over his shoulder, looking and going, where are we going? This is exciting. And I'm like, oh my goodness, she knows nothing about us. And that's exactly a picture of both Dave and I and Jesus having the wheel. And it's pretty fun. I'm like, God, you're hilarious. Well, the funny part of the whole thing is it was a beautiful meadow. The car was a representation of extreme opulence is what I looked up. It was the rarity and what is very rare. And it was in a beautiful, beautiful meadow. And it was going downhill, and Jesus was going way faster than most people. She said, for me, I was like, Jesus, what are you doing? You're going way too fast. But how many of you know with Jesus at the wheel, you don't really need a seatbelt? That's the way I look at life. I'm like, are you kidding me? That would hold me clear back here when I can climb clear up here and be looking over the steering wheel and going, where are we going? This is so fun. It's so exciting. And you know what part of that dream was? There was no road. It was just wide open terrain that was beautiful. The road was being formed by Jesus as he drove faster than most people would have thought he should, and in a direction that had not been taken. Quite exciting. I'm like, okay, honey, that was a very prophetic dream. And here we are as a community in that vehicle. It's not just Dave and I. We are senior leaders, but you're all hopefully with me on my end of it, looking over, going, where are we going? What's going on? This is so exciting. What are you up to? What does this journey look like? It isn't the path that's been paved and carried on all these years. How many of you have gone through something in the last year that's like, ooh, this is not what I expected, or this is not what I would have not chosen this, I would have not whatever, but here I am, Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, that's what he's after. He's after taking the wheel and going, you know what? I've got this. I've got this figured out. So let's go back to the V.I.P. Center. The V.I.P. Center is a place for really elevating the value of the complete servant. And many of us have gifts and we're serving. Many of us have more gifts than we are allowing to flow through us. The question you have to ask yourself is, what are the gifts that I bring to the kingdom? What are the gifts that I look at my life and say, I could do this? Ed is setting up the VIP Center over there, or we all are. He just worked to get it ready. But it's getting set up so that anytime during the week, Ed will be working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So at any of those days, you can go out there and he'll say, hey, we actually need this to be done. We need this to be done. And it'll fit something you know how to do. So we can get everybody activated anytime people have free time. It's a beautiful, amazing journey. And yet in there, they're going to have probably dinners once or twice a week for the people on campus or the volunteers that want to come in and just say, hey, let me help cook. Let me be a part of this. It's going to create phenomenal community. I've never seen it be done anywhere, but Jesus has the wheel and he's like, this is what we're going to do and this is where we're going and it's going to be exciting. So I'm so excited about that. Next week we'll have probably, hopefully, a little video of the finished piece of that. And it was so beautiful. We barely moved in the furniture that Linda had gone out and looked for and found. Really beyond amazing what God showed her. It had to be sovereign. It came out of $2 million build house. And she called me and she said, the couch I got is phenomenal, absolutely beautiful, but they have a darling game table that is the coffee table. It's a beautiful piece, absolutely beautiful. They want $500 for it. And I'm like, yeah, we can't do that. We are not the rich people. We are the people that try to use every cent to do something to further the kingdom. And I said, we really can't do that. And she said, I know, I wasn't even considering it. And I said, but we're a 501c. Call them and see if they would be interested in donating it because of who we are and what we do, right? And it's not that we don't have money coming through. We do, and we try to allocate it into the very best possible places. And we don't try to use extra where we don't have to. And so she called them and they said, yes, come pick it up. Well, guess what it is? It's a giant, beautiful chessboard with figures that are like this tall. And God had shown one of my friends in a encounter that God was moving chess pieces and playing this out, and he was strategically doing what he needed to do to accomplish his purposes. And I look at the whole thing and I think, God, you're hilarious. You have a big picture here and you're doing what you want to do if we'll just stay back and watch and say, you go for it, let me come for the ride, right? When we get in trouble is when we try to grab the wheel and say, this is where we want to go. We get in trouble when we do that. So in the meantime, my precious friend Rick retires from his business, which a year and a half ago or so, he put the most beautiful furniture into an office, and he's a decorator. The man can be an interior decorator. He's phenomenal, and he did Lori's office. Everybody comes by and says, when will my office get to look like that? And I'm like, when you're married to Rick, which is probably not going to happen for the rest of us. But the truth is, he has an eye for that, and he put all this furniture in Lori's office. And when we asked Lori, could you serve for Dave as a personal assistant to Dave way back in the day, Dave went to Rick and said, would that work? He said, under one condition. Can I tell? I was going to stop in the middle. Under one condition, he said, under this condition, that she would be able to serve out of a volunteer's heart of love rather than taking money from the church. Well, we all can't do that, and she might not be able to do that forever. You know, the truth is she already served, I don't know how long, 9 months, but the truth is God is after our hearts that just want to give. Most of us have bills we have to pay, and I get to volunteer happily. It's happy for me. And my husband said, you probably should be paid. I'm like, no, I shouldn't. I want to be the head of the volunteers. I'm like, yay, let me rally the volunteers. It's the funnest place. So anyway, Lori has been such a blessing. Greg's right in front, and Greg has volunteered himself crazy around here. It's been amazing watching the paint jobs and all this stuff. He just constantly did the ushers for years and years. And amazing, when I look out there, I think, look at the volunteers that are giving their time, their talent, their treasures, and it's all coming together because you're willing to lay down your life. Jesus said, if you're not willing to give up what? What does that mean? If you're not willing to give up everything, you're not worthy to be my disciple. Well, that's a hard one for Americans to swallow. That is not a pill that we buy a whole bunch of bottles and save them up for a rainy day. We don't do that. We're like, I'm not going to give up everything. I'm going to give up something. How many of you have heard of R.J. Letourneau? I think that's his name. You've heard of him? He actually had God download to him how to create like big earth-moving machines. And he said this. He said, he gave 90% of everything he made to the kingdom. But what he said is, he said, I had a shovel and I kept shoveling at the kingdom. I kept shoveling it at the kingdom. But as much as I shoveled it, God had a bigger shovel and he shoveled it back at me. Some of you are in the in-between time, the testing time, where the shovel has been going this way more than it's been dumping back. Years ago, a beautiful prophetic lady came and she said, she started laughing and kicking her feet. She was sitting on the ground. She's Taiwanese. She's kicking her legs. She says, oh my goodness, there's a dump truck in heaven and it is going to pour out on your people. I can tell you that I have seen prophets do that kind of thing over and over and over again. And God is wanting to take witty ideas and inventions and plant them in your minds like he did with R.J. Letourneau. The man became extremely rich, but he started by saying, I'm a kingdom-minded business. I'm here for the sake of the kingdom. I'm not here to get more houses, more wealth. What good does that do us? The Bible tells us to be content in whatever situation we're in. And God is wanting to rally us as a corporate group that live in community. And if you have a need, I'm wanting to meet your need. Everybody doesn't all have needs the same day. Some days I have a litter of puppies and I can be a blessing. Some days I don't have anything and I can just smile and hug you, right? There's times and seasons for each of us in life. But God is saying, will you be faithful in the middle of the difficulty? Will you be faithful to trust me? Just stand in the middle of it. And there are people that don't understand the giving of tithes. Tithes really are just 10% of everything God has given you. If you keep the tithe, you're saying, I'm keeping everything. I'm not giving any of what you gave me back from what you gave, right? R.J. Letourneau said this. He said, I don't try to decide how much I'm going to give God. I decide how much of his money I'm going to keep. What an interesting way to look at life. I'm going to decide how much of his money I'm going to use for what I need to do, and what I'm actually going to do with the money that he funnels through me is push his kingdom forward. I'm going to do that. We need to get that mindset so that we can do the Embassy Greens, the whole project out there, the Light of Lives. That's going to bring in a lot of people that are in the new age right now. They'll come in to get prayer, to get the Light of Life, all of the light healing therapy, and they'll find out that our little prayer warriors are upstairs and they're right there, and they're like, while you're in there, we're going to be praying for you, and let me find out if you have any family needs, and the kingdom is going to be advanced through a whole arena that would never step foot in here, but they're going to come in the back door. They're going to be coming in from there. And reality is that's still on the front burner. You know what our stove has out here at GT? 12 front burners. We have a big stove. 12 front burners. Most people would like us to do one project at a time. I have a lot of faith, but not that much. I don't have faith for one project at a time. I have faith for all the projects that God has for us, and I have faith for them coming together. It's happening. This weekend, Ted finished up the kitchen. It looks fabulous. Ted and Dave and Adam, the guys that all helped on that. It was beautiful. AJ. It was beautiful, but it was just their heart, their gifts, and they're coming in and going, let me do this. Let me fix up this. And there are those of you that really give and really fund, and those online. Thank God for the online funders that are helping this little body of people do so much. I thank you, and I bless you, and I pray blessings. I pray for people that we would begin to get huge inheritances that we could give for the sake of the kingdom. Wouldn't it be fun if you found out that you had something you had no idea was coming, and you could say, you know what, I can actually do the piece of heaven. I can do that. Why don't I get to give that? Is your heart positioned to where if money flooded to you, you would be an open channel for it to flow into the kingdom to advance what God's up to? Or are you thinking individualistic? Are you thinking, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do whatever I need for me to make sure me and mine are taken care of? God is like, I'll take care of you. I take care of the lilies. How many of you have walked a faith walk that has felt at times like, whew, this is a little hard because I don't feel like I always have enough? Right? I've been there. I want to pray for all of us that have felt that way, because I believe God is shifting things. I believe we're at a transition of the ages where God is about to release. And Bonnie Jones, Bob Jones' wife, did a major prophecy about this. She was woken up in the night or 5 o'clock in the morning, and she had major prophecy about the transfer of wealth. She said, we are set up for the major transfer of wealth from the unrighteous to the righteous to God's kids. How many of you know you have a spirit within you that testifies to whether or not you're God's kid? If you have the enemy beating you up, you beat him up. You are God's kid if you gave yourself to him, if you actually accepted Jesus and said, Jesus, I'm coming through the door that you created into union with the Father, then you are his kid. And God is saying, would you come this way? And I want to pray for those of you that have been in the journey, in the struggle of, I'm going to lay down my life for the sake of the kingdom, and it feels like the breakthrough has yet to come. I want to pray right now, because I believe God is up to something in this season for transferring the wealth and shifting things, and even creating businesses that we didn't even dream of yesterday. We didn't even think about them. They're new. God's up to something, and he's going to place them on your hearts, and you're going to become the kingdom funders as you create businesses. Ted and Mary have created multiple businesses, hired people that sometimes other people wouldn't hire, given people chances over and over and over, and it's been absolutely beautiful watching. They're kingdom builders. Before I even understood what that meant, God gave me a prophecy over 10 years ago. You're going to build the kingdom. I'm like, what does that even mean? Well, the kingdom is within us, and also we're building an embassy. We're building a kingdom, a place where people can rest in the middle of the storm. So I want to pray right now. God, I pray against anything that would limit funds and finances from coming to your people. God, I'm asking you to open creativity in the minds of your servant heart hearted givers, those that are generous and really give of their lives, God, would you pour financial blessing over them, even beginning today. God, I ask for a release of the host of heaven, that you would forcefully advance all that is on your slate to give to them, God. God, let this be a season where we can look back and laugh as we say, your kingdom is being advanced through your people because you set them up with kingdom businesses, God. In Jesus' name, amen. And I was bringing up my friend Rick, and Rick retired, and he had just set up his whole business with beautiful furniture. And one day he came and he was about to retire, and he said to Lori and I, he said, God just told me to give all of my furniture to the church. And I know that you'll still get your reward in heaven from it because you're not telling, I'm telling. Okay? Don't worry about that. I'm tattling. He gave all of this furniture to the church. Well, guess what? He had just bought that furniture at R.C. Wiley. Is that how you say it? Anyway, a furniture store, a nice one. Picked out this beautiful furniture. It's out there in the V.I.P lounge. What God did was created a phenomenal place for his servants who are the greatest in the kingdom. And he's creating a beautiful place and saying, you're valued, you're loved. And really, all of us should become the servants. We're the greatest in the kingdom as we lay down our lives and our time, our talents, and our wealth to serve the king and the kingdom. So God is up to something that is not exactly religiosity or normal Christianity. He's after your whole heart. He's after your whole life. He's after you having a kingdom business where you're like, God, if I'm abased or if I abound, it's all the same. I want your presence. I want to walk in the place of your glory. If I have nothing, I want to walk in the place of your glory. I'll feel like I have everything because in your presence is everything I need. And in that place is like, let me give of myself. Let me give of my time. I don't have treasure to give. I have time. I have me. God has us all on a journey where he's saying, I want a little more of your heart. I want a little more of your time. I want a little more of your talent. And you're going to be the beneficiary. This is not about somebody else benefiting. This is about you ending up in the place where the journey takes you into the fullness of joy. In his presence is fullness of joy. So let's go to J.C. Penney's. How many of you know what J.C. Penney did with his life? Caught that. J.C. Penney gave and gave and gave, and he gave 90% of his income. Isn't that seem amazing? I'm going to tell you a little upside down story real quick. It's not that kind of a story. J.C. Penney gave 90%. The Caterpillar, the guy that started Caterpillar was R.J. Letourneau. He gave 90% of his income most of his life. Both of them, most of their lives, gave 90% of their income to the king in the kingdom and to Christian, to what was going on in the kingdom. Many prophets have come through here and said there are going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars that flow through here. You're going to steward, Liz Wright said, billions. You know what that requires of the stewards? For them not to care about money. It's like, I have no interest, have no care for it whatsoever. God is trying to rally a team of people that's like, it doesn't pull me. I am not interested. It is not my interest. But my interest is in building the kingdom. My interest is in seeing every person's treasure, time, and talents fully realized in them, for the king. Super, super exciting time to be alive. And God's got the wheel. Jesus has the wheel, and he's taking us on this journey. So what I see happening is just that. I see him going, no, I got this. I got this. Let's get our lives in order, and let's build out the kingdom. Let's build out an embassy that is completely and totally safe from the enemy's attack. That requires us becoming love. It requires us not fearing when it feels like there's lack, us going back to him and saying, God, you're my father. You know, I got the idea as I was thinking through this and praying through this about inheritance and how some people have a big inheritance in their family. Most of us do not. I have a big spiritual inheritance, which is fabulous. It's wonderful to have a grandfather that walked in signs and wonders and miracles and absolutely loved everyone. That's a wonderful thing. But financially, my grandpa never held on to anything. He didn't care about money. He never once was accused of taking money. Never once, because he didn't care about money. He's like, nope, not interested. Not something that interests me. When you end up in the presence of God, all of those things seem ridiculous. I'm like, why would I care about money when I can be in his presence, when I can carry his glory? Why would that dirt world stuff even pull me, right? And God is saying that to us. And yet, in the middle of that, he's like, would you be willing to steward a lot of money so it can flow into the kingdom? Would you be willing to have a mindset to hire those that other people don't hire and be givers? And there's other people that I don't know if they'll want me to call them out or not, but have been kingdom-minded for years and years and years and have done just that, have been the funders of the kingdom. It's the beautiful thing. It's like, what a heart for God we show through what we do with our treasures, right? And so R.J. Letourneau, J.C. Penney, there are many, many more that were like that were just saying, how can I give myself, my time, my treasure to the kingdom? You know, everything here can shake. Anything you build, any wealth you think you're stacking up for yourself, it can be gone tomorrow. What can never be gone is what you give to the king. It can't be taken. Because he actually, let me tell you a story, because it looked to somebody like it was taken in this situation. I forget the man's name. I remember his wife's name because her name was Bertha. So I haven't forgotten that. But there's a man who was a very wealthy man down in the LA area, and he got saved, and he was quite wealthy, and he gave. It was in a little tiny church, and he gave and gave and gave, and he pretty much single-handedly built the whole building. And then they found out there was really ugly stuff going on in the leadership. And he looked at his wife, and they got down on their knees, and they said, this is the saddest thing ever. We tried to do the right thing, and look what a mess this is in. And they got down on their knees and said, God, we give to you what we already gave to you. We trust you. This looks bad, but we trust you. And we're going to walk away from this with clean hearts, and we're going to not be a part of the mess that is going on in there, but we're going to walk away without regret and just say, God, we trust you. So they did that. So 25, 30 years down the road, they're still serving God. They've moved. They're in a different location. And my hubby gets that man's phone number. Or no, that man got my hubby's phone number from somebody. That man started seeing in the spirit a lot. And he was seeing a lot of things. And somebody, a truck driver, gave him a phone number and said, this guy might be able to help you through what you're going through. And so he said he put it on his desk, and it blew off the top and over the edge, and he didn't see it for a couple years. And then he was cleaning, and he found that little phone number, thought, I'm going to check with these guys. When the man gave the phone number, the miracle wouldn't have taken place, but God knew way ahead of time, gave the phone number. The phone number got lost until it was just the right time to find the phone number, and he called my husband. And my husband said, oh, yes, come up here. We had just completed this building. And he said, yes, come up here. You should come up here. I can definitely help you with what you're struggling through and the stuff you're walking through. So the guy gets up here, and he starts telling his story. He said, you know, I actually gave a lot of money as a young businessman, and I was so just tempted to be hurt because the leadership at the church went sideways. It was really ugly. It was ugly enough. I don't want to tell you how ugly. It was just wrong. Nothing like that should ever happen inside God's house. But sometimes the enemy sneaks in and makes a mess, and he did in that setting. And so the man was telling my husband, he said, I was just sad that happened, but we gave it to God, and we just said, God, we trust you. You know what? We poured into your kingdom. It's not our job what they did wrong. We're going to leave that in your hands, and we're going to just trust you. And my husband's listening, and he said to him, he said, would that church that you helped build have been in a certain little city? I can't remember the name of it. But he said, would that have been in this little city by any chance? And he said, yes, it was. And he said, oh my goodness. He said, what do you think about that building right over there? This building. And the man said, well, it's obviously beautiful. And he said, the money you poured into that building, God sovereignly took and put in this building right here, in this building, $1.5 million or $2 million. It was a lot of money that actually got given to us as someone else, Marvin Gorman, called us and said, would you help a little hurting church in Huntington Beach? And Dave said, well, can't you think of somebody else closer? And he said, no, God actually told me to have you help the church in Huntington Beach. And when we went down there, it was such a mess. Dave said, I would ditch the 501c3, sell your chattel, get out from under this before you all go to jail. It's a mess. And they said, we already prayed about it, and we thought, if you say that, we're going to give you the church. And Dave's like, no, I'm not trying to take this church. I'm not even interested. No. And they said, no, we already knew that's what God wanted us to do. He wanted us to give it to you. So we took work parties to Huntington Beach. We cleaned that thing up. We sold it, and half that money we invested into starting a church down there. And so there's a church down there that we all, and the guys that gave the money to begin with, invested in, and that's forcefully advancing the kingdom, and it's doing really well, and it's amazing. And then God takes the rest of it and puts it here, and then he brings the man that gave that money and shows him exactly what he invested in 35 years ago. Is that an amazing miracle? I'm like, blows. It's so beautiful. I'm just like, God, you are the ultimate administrator. You can figure this whole thing out. When people goof up, when they go sideways, you still got it. You still have this. And so here, God is wanting to create a community of people that are saying, hey, I'm all in. All in looks different to different people. To Jesus' disciples, it looked like you got to leave your jobs, you got to leave everything, and you're going to come out and you're going to eat fish with me on the beach, right? I mean, that's pretty much, he went out with fishermen and tax collectors and said, here, these days, he's not telling everyone you have to leave your jobs, you have to leave everything, but he might tell you that. Be listening for what he tells you. Be listening if he's telling you, I want you to start this business. Be listening if he's saying, I want you to give a higher percentage. 10% is a minimum of what we need to be willing to give back to God. It's his money. He gives it to us. And then we have to decide, are we going to hoard it? Are we going to be fearful and keep all of that because we're afraid we won't have enough? Or are we going to be generous on every occasion like our Father? So the question I think here is, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Is your daddy a father who owns everything and you trust that he loves you completely? Or are you fear-based and you got a different daddy in some areas? We've got to get out of that and say, God, Jesus looked at his own disciples and said, get behind me, Satan. I'm like, don't do that to me. That would be the saddest thing I could ever imagine hearing Jesus say to me, right? And if we're fear-based, then we're living from the wrong playing field. We have to be willing to step out of the boat and say, I'm going all in. I'm willing to give my time, my talent, my treasures. And honestly, if you haven't had the faith in your heart to be tithing, just say, God, forgive me. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to step in and tithe. If you've been tithing, then take the next step and say, God, I want to give alms. I want to give to the poor and the needy. You know what the Bible says about that? It says when you do that, God is the one you're lending to. I think he's really good at interest. I think if I lend to God, he's like, I trust you. The more we give, the more he trusts that we're faithful and that in the long run, not in the short run, in the short run, there'll be testing, there'll be trying, and we might find out that we're a little more afraid than we thought we were. But he's like, no, come on, I got your hand. And in the long run, I'm going to bless you more than you could imagine. So what I want to do today, really, I have a bunch of verses that I was going to share, but I'm not going to share them. The Bible is full of verses that talk about lending to the poor, lending to God, really giving of your time, your talents. If you bury your treasure could be money, your treasure could be your talents, your treasure can be your heart. It's like, I've been hurt. I'm not going to open my heart again. Don't bury your heart. Take your heart, open it up, and give again. The worst thing you can possibly do is guard your heart from loving. It's the worst thing you can do. Open your heart, open your hand, and be a part of what he has for the kingdom at this time. It's so exciting. And so for me, I'm looking over the steering wheel watching. I mean, did my husband almost die? Very, very close. I mean, to be honest, the night that he had the biggest heart attack, it was this close. He's like, I think you saved my life. And I'm like, well, I'm sure God did. That's for sure. But the truth is, God stepped in, and now he is healthy as a horse and losing weight and getting healthy. And it took that probably for Dave and I both to get our attention so that we would walk out health, so that we would walk out the vitality, that we would walk in all that God said. So I want to encourage each of you, let's get healthy. Let's get strong. Let's be able to really forcefully advance his kingdom in every way, not burying any of our time, any of our talents, any of our treasures. As we kick off, like next weekend, we're going to say after service, the VIP lounge will be open for people to go and get snacks, and it's down there, and we'll try to mark it well. But just go down there and look around and meet Ed. Meet each other. My priority is you all knowing each other. This community becoming family at the deepest level. So join home groups, get involved, and really, truly serve God with your time, your talents, and your treasures. Let God reward you. Be one that is, some people are very investment minded, right? I'm going to put my money here. The money is going to come back over here. It's going to come back over here. God's saying, I'm the best investment, and I'll reward you for eternity. I'm the best investment. So let him be your investment counselor and hear him clearly. He may tell you to put some money over here, do this, but don't take your own well-being as what you're trying to take care of. You go after God and say, God, I want to be a kingdom builder. How many of you would love for God to give you ideas that you could build a business like Caterpillar or build a business like JCPenney? These days it's online and it's easier. You can have people drop ship stuff. Who knows? You just have to ask God to give you what he wants to give you. How many of you think that would be a fun thing if God would pour wealth through you? And so I want to pray as we close. I want to pray for that. Those of you that really would love to be kingdom funders and wealth producers for the sake of the kingdom that can truly say, I have no greed in my heart. I'm not trying to do this for me at any level. I just want to see the kingdom forcefully advanced. I want to pray for those of you. I want you to come up here if you feel like that would be wonderful. I would love to see God do that. Come right up here up front, and I'm going to just pray and really have all of us pray for you, because there are people that God is going to do that to and through, and we'll look back through history and we'll say, oh my word, I know when they didn't have two nickels to rub together, but today, look what God's done. So I'm excited about that. And God, I thank you for the beautiful hearts that are here, these hands, these hearts, the beauty of what you're up to. And God, for everyone even seated, everyone that's seated in this place, God, I just pray that you would begin blessing. Bless, 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 bless. God, I pray right now that you would begin to give ideas that go beyond what they've ever imagined. God, many of them have had prophecy about having inventions. Let those inventions come to the front right now. God, let them spring forth, and let the amazing, amazing grace that you have for each of their lives, let those things begin to be fully realized, God. God, we're asking you for witty inventions. We're asking you, God, to see from heaven's perspective and to see what's happening in the next season. We're asking you, God, that these people that you have raised their hands online or up here up front, God, that you would give them incredible favor. Give them favor. Give them ideas. Let them be the kingdom funders as we move forward. Let them look back and say, my goodness, I remember remember when I stood there, and I remember the dreams, the visions, the things that started to happen. And God, we just say yes. Yes to your kingdom. We want nothing. We are not greedy people. We do not want for us, but we want to be channels of blessings, God. Thank you for what you've already done in that VIP center. It is so obvious that you are up to these precious people becoming the servants of all and letting amazing funds flow through their hands, God. We pray blessings. We pray, Lord Jesus, everything that's already happened in their lives as they have really laid down their lives, many of them for years and years. God, let them begin to realize the blessing for that, God. God, I pray right now that as you do what you're going to do in their hearts individually and their marriages, that you would produce even counseling centers that would be hubs that would look like you intended for them to look, God. God, do what only you can do and let the beauty of heaven and earth come together. God, I pray right now that the hurts and the wounds and the pain in each life would be healed. We just wash that away. We just say, hell, you are a liar, and you are from the pit of hell. You a liar. You get off of their backs, get away from them, and we just say, no more. No more of the lies. No more of the lies. Open the windows of heaven and let them experience hearing heaven clearly and walking out everything that you have for them. God, I just thank you for the birthing of many, many, many brand new kingdom businesses and blowing open the ideas where new things can happen, even in businesses that are already alive and well. Brand new ideas, creative ideas. Thank you for the birthing that is happening even this morning. We thank you for conception to birth all that you have for each and every one. In Jesus' name, we thank you and we bless you, Jesus. Amen.